Dun, dun, dun.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Here Be Dragons. I am your host, Stephen Stark, and joining me this week for another I Know That Nerd, very special guest, a man who has slept on my futon, dancing on from History of Westeros. How you doing, man? You got here pretty quick after your last stream ended.
I'm doing great. Yeah, it was a little bit of a rush, but glad to be here. Excited to be here.
Yeah, you will complete the History of Westeros collection for I Know That Nerd. I've had both Aziz and Ashaya on in the past, and I've been keeping you in my back pocket for when I needed someone, and here we are.
Feels good to be needed.
Oh, you've always been needed, man. Ever since you first show, like I go back with you all the way to like your first appearance when you were doing show reviews and not really knowing what was going on, and I fell in love with you even then because you had a really great way of looking at the world, looking at the story. Yeah. Kate is commenting on our beard. We there's a lot of beard love on this channel, as you can see. Yes. I even wore my I find your lack of beard disturbing shirt.
Nice.
Not specifically for you, but yeah, if you see Team Beard is showing up. Sean of House Beard. I mean, I needed somebody that could match me in my beard game. So
indeed. By the way, I'm wearing a shirt from the Get Down. This is Shaolin Fantastic. Which I love this shirt and I love that show. But it's not the shirt I wanted to wear. It's like scrambling around trying to find it and read it, dug it out of the dirty clothes. But I have a shirt. It's a mashup of Avatar and Cowboy Bebop.
Okay. Avatar The Last Airbender?
Yeah.
Okay.
I know my audience here.
Right.
Probably a lot more Avatar fans than Get Down fans, but maybe I'll cross-pollinate some people.
Hey man, that's what you ought to be thinking about. Like, bring what you love to the masses, right? And that's part of what I've noticed. You know, I know you have your own YouTube channel. I guess most of us know you mostly from being Aziz's buddy and sort of co-host on Valor Rereadus. But you've got your own channel where you do like movie reviews. I've watched several of them.
Yeah, I haven't put nearly the effort into it that I should. I gotta build the right energy and find the right moments. I remember on your I Know That Nerd with Lady Gwen, you asked her what the hardest part was, and she said getting started. Yeah, it's very true, right? But yeah, I've also done the Boys TV show. I covered that one pretty thoroughly.
Hi, Christina. I'm kind of like, hello. I bumped into her during the live chat for your stream. Thanks for coming to support Sean. He's definitely worthy of your support.
I try.
So I usually like to start this with more or less the same question.
Okay.
The title is I Know That Nerd. You identify as a nerd. There was a point in your life where you were like, no, this is the thing. I know I'm a nerd now because of this. Can you pinpoint what that is for you? The first thing that you had that sort of like crazy passion about?
Well, I think I might have had a few crazy passions before I equated that to being a nerd. I kind of knew you were going to ask this question, and I've stewed on it a little bit. And I should probably prepare you and people out there. I'm not often just going to have a simple, straight, direct answer. I'm usually going to have like some sort of analysis or story to tell. Thinking back on it, as a kid in high school, I was doing some nerdy stuff. Like I started playing D&D. I was into like board games like Axis and Allies and I think that's kind of nerdy stuff, but I still didn't really think of myself as being a nerd. And it wasn't necessarily even like, I'm not a nerd. It just didn't occur to me. I don't know. It wasn't. I had maybe a little bit of a diverse kind of like social groups that I was part of in high school. And another thing, probably like I did debate. And a lot of people probably would have looked at that as kind of a nerdy thing too, but I wasn't. It wasn't like occurring to me that was a nerdy thing. But I think eventually I got pretty into Magic the Gathering. In fact, a lot of my life has been built around the friends that I made there. It's part of why I moved to Atlanta when I got out of the Army. And um, like a lot of things, it's like a whole community. And I ended up building up a business, a game store, and way more than probably
Oh,
even you might realize, or most people might really, whatever, how much of the connection to the fandom you have for like Game of Thrones or something. I mean, my entire job and social life for 10, 20 years was based around at least at the onset of Magic the Gathering. By the end, the business was more like a distribution center than a game, than a game store. But anyway, rambling a little bit. The point is,
ramble.
eventually, yeah,
You are here
eventually,
to
I'm
ramble
like,
to your heart's
yeah.
delight.
Even when I first started getting into Magic, a lot of the people that played Magic, or that I was surrounded by that played Magic, they were extroverted, even physical. Talented, humorous, intelligent, and not that nerds aren't or can't be, but a lot of times that's not the stereotype, right? A lot of nerds stereotypically are reclusive. They're in the basement. They're not good at sports or whatever. And just me personally, and most of my friends weren't fitting those stereotypes. So I never was really quite identifying as a nerd. I mean, I was breakdancing. You know what I mean? I was like,
Right.
uh,
You
so
did you did some nerdy things, but you didn't sort of classify yourself that way.
yeah. But more and more with the game store, my life and my circle started to pare down a little bit more to that. And working at a game store, that there's a reason there are certain stereotypes around nerds, and everyone doesn't always fit into them, but a lot of people fit into a lot of them.
Right.
And I the owner of the game store, he would often, we had like, at one point we had a whiteboard, and he would write up on there like things you don't hear every day, like things you hear at a magic shop, like, orcs are far better than elves, or just things that you can imagine the banter going around with people playing Magic and D&D and such. So it was in that realm. I'm like, I'm a nerd, whatever. And you know what? Nerds are cool nowadays. It's a different world, like I wasn't even like ashamed or avoiding it. It just wasn't occurring to me. But at the point that it did, I'm like, of course I'm a nerd. We're all nerds, whether you realize it or not. Football fans are nerds, man. They are so,
Right.
it depends how you define nerd, but I kind of think of nerd as someone who's like super into something. Does that make
Right.
sense?
They
And in the
spend their free
past,
time
yeah,
pursuing that passion.
yeah. And in the past, a lot of things that someone might have been nerdy about were kind of like niche, like something that not a lot of people knew or cared about. Like in 1985, no one knew or cared about computers or Iron Man, right? But now those are like regular normal parts of society that everyone loves. So it's maybe to be a nerd now, you have to be into some more niche thing. And
No,
if you're into
look,
Star Wars, you're not a nerd now. I don't know if that's
we're
fair.
not gatekeeping anybody here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like you can love what you love. Now, when I say nerd, I have a certain meaning, and it does I do lump things like Star Wars and Star Trek and D&D and Magic the Gathering and a lot of the traditionally nerdy things in there, even though they are much more mainstream, much more sort of just like pop culture in general. Like how many people play D&D now versus played D&D 30 years ago when I was in high school? It's
Mm-hmm.
night and day. Like I literally have people ask me to play in their games. I'm like, I can't. I play too much D&D already,
Yeah.
which was never the problem we had when we were teenagers, I'm sure. So
Depending on how many different nerd things you were into, or how much sleep you wanted to get.
right. So I guess you're a gaming nerd then.
I guess, yeah.
That's where I come into it from as well. For me, it was Dungeons and Dragons back when I was 9 years old. I loved it, and I've never looked back. I mean, I played Magic the Gathering back in the day since the mid '90s. Remember going to the post exchange on base to buy Ice Age boosters.
Yeah. That's got to be 1997-ish.
No, I got out in '96. I think that was actually '95.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
when Ice Age came out. But yeah, anyway, go way back.
Yeah, movie nerd. I'm a movie nerd. I'll claim that. Yeah, more so than
Yeah.
game or anything else.
Okay, I'm with
Yeah, I
you.
saw the chat there. Yeah.
Our John, my co-host, my regular co-host John, is our resident movie nerd. You also check out his channel, John Webster Film. And if you're really nice, I'll give you the link to his OnlyFans at the end of the stream. That's yeah, on running gag that John has an OnlyFans. There he is.
Yes.
They did a really fun stream last night on Dragonheart. He and Micah Clark, if you know Micah from Twitteros or whatever.
Yeah.
So Magic the Gathering, that was your passion that you pursued. I'm sure, as anybody who's played the game, you've probably spent a fair amount of money on it. Did you ever play professionally, go to tournaments or anything like that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't know if I would say I played professionally, but I definitely went to a lot of tournaments. I spent 1 year going to all the pro tours. I've played in countless tournaments. I think it's a really great game. It's a really well designed game. It's evolved well. It's got they support a lot of artists. I could go on and on about positives. There's frustrations, like people are always going to complain about like how the corporate people manage the game, and people are going to complain that I got mana screwed, or I didn't draw enough lands. There's all kinds of angles to it, and I can't deny it's one of my favorite games just based on how much I played it and how well I know it. But there's lots of other games I love too, and I don't know. I relate to people who are frustrated with it and obsessed with it.
Well, I'm not obsessed with it, but I definitely like Within Arm's Reach is my favorite commander deck. Within Arm's Reach. It is Anjay Falconwrath, Red Black Vampire Madness. I love it. I only play Commander anymore though, so.
I don't know what percent of your audience plays Magic, so I don't want to ramble too much about it, but I love to draft. So that's my I have cobbled together a commander deck because I realize how many people play it, and if you have one, it's a lot easier to get something going with almost anyone that plays Magic at all. But one, I think drafting is it tests a skill that most other formats don't, which is creating the deck, like piecing together the cards.
Right. From a limited pool.
Yeah. For those that don't know people out there who maybe don't know, Magic is it's a game. It's like a card game, but it's also collectible. So like Pokemon. If you know Pokemon, it's Magic, right? So one way to play Magic is you get like, I like this card and I like this card, and you piece them together and you make your deck and you play someone else. But another way is you open up packs and make a deck out of just those packs, and someone else does the same thing. And there's variations of how you can do that. But anyway, that's my favorite way to play, for one, because I don't have to like keep up with a new set. I don't have to like carry around a trade binder. I could just like show up with $20, buy some packs, open them up, make a deck, play. Okay, I'm done. I don't have to keep up with as much stuff. And I really love the skill of from unlimited. Like when you look at all the powerful stuff, like, okay, yeah, obviously, Jace Beleren is powerful and Black Lotus is powerful. But when you're looking at this pool of random commons from a package that's open, which of these is the best combination? How am I going to cobble together something out of this limited pool that also no one else has looked at? There's like I can't go to someone's blog online to see how they built this deck because they didn't open these packs. New. Yeah, this is a random pool that no one has seen before. So
yeah, I'm with you. But I always like, I think drafting is one of the best ways to play the game. I agree.
It's also a way that most other card games don't have. They don't design themselves. That's another kind of unique facet of Magic that most other card games that have come out in its wake don't have. So, First
Strike, I can explain. Banding, not so much. There's a reason they haven't used it since the original printing.
I could explain both. It's pretty nerdy stuff. I mean, you really have to be a committed nerd to be watching me explain banding.
maybe if we run out of stuff to talk about towards the end.
First Strike is pretty simple though. You just have the damage step twice. It's
exactly.
Your creature does, and the other one doesn't. But anyway, let's get on from Magic for now. We'll probably get drawn back into it, but
I'm sure we will. I did want to say for the record, I'm pretty bad at drafting, even though it's very, very fun. But yeah, I'm
Yeah,
not.
you got to work at it. It's
And
not
I
an
just know,
easy thing. Yeah.
like, I know bread, bombs removal, evasion. What's our bombs removal, evasion, attackers, and then duds.
I don't even know if that's. I've heard that before, but I don't think D. I think D is still something positive. The problem is that like how you rank those exactly when you vary off to a third color or whether you do or it's too simple. That's too simple. It's a good rule of thumb, especially for someone that's new. It's what's a heuristic, I guess. But there's more to it than that. So.
Oh, that breaks my heart, Christina, that opened an alpha pack and got nothing.
Just so you know, if you still have those cards, the cheapest card from alpha is probably $5. Like it, and also in 2000, I don't know, I bet a pack of alpha might have still been hundreds of dollars, I guess. But
yeah,
I'm just saying, if you have a common forest or I don't know, like a Mons Goblins Raider, if an alpha version is still worth, I don't know, $5-10 probably, you'd be surprised how much alpha cards are. And if you open that pack, they're probably pretty mint. I'm telling you, you should do some research.
yeah, because even an alpha island is worth something.
An alpha island is probably $50 or $60. I bet I'm lowballing it. I'm telling you.
Oh, okay, so I'm gonna slightly steer us in a different direction. You're a movie nerd.
Yes.
Maybe more than a game nerd.
Definitely.
Okay.
I think.
What's that a poster of right there?
Empire Strikes Back.
Is that some movie I've
I assume you have heard of The Empire Strikes Back.
I did a retro review of it for my birthday because I'm reviewing my favorite movie.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
Do you have a favorite movie?
If I'm pinned down, if I just have to pick one, I think it's Hope. I think it's A New Hope. If I just have to pick one favorite movie. I
like with not just Star Wars, but like favorite movie all time.
Yeah, I think I pick. Here's the thing, okay? You're gonna get me started. All right, this is part of being
Let's
a movie
do it.
nerd
Let's
here,
do
all
it.
right? Is it there's a difference between your favorite movie and what you think is the best movie,
True.
and maybe even other ways to categorize it, like what you might most recommend or what you might think is the most important or best. Or so like, I've thought about this so much. I'm a list nerd. I'll tell you that. I'm a list nerd. So there are some movies that require a certain amount of context to appreciate. Does that make sense? Like on the surface, something like Citizen Kane is just boring. You know what I mean? But if you know a whole bunch about, but if you know a lot about film history, you're sort of like, oh, I can see that's the first time someone like, look at the makeup he used to age himself. There's like all these things you might appreciate that were innovative for that time period.
Forced perspective and dolly shots, and like they did a lot with cinematography in that movie.
But you have to kind of know and care a little bit about film and history for that to matter, right? And so you'll find people who are like film critics and movie buffs, they'll put Citizen Kane really high on their list. But the average person, they haven't seen that movie, and if they do, they're like, I don't get it. What's the big deal? So another angle to come at it from, I think about how I can't think of quite the right. By the way, I will get to flick chart. Shay.
Yeah, we'll get there.
But I think a lot about the idea of how I can't think of quite the right phrasing, but I want to say how recommendable a movie is. So, for example, Saving Private Ryan, I think, is a great movie, an important movie, but it's not good for like my 7-year-old niece. Right. You know what I mean? It's not. I don't want to like some movies. It might be
not for date night.
Right. Exactly. Like some movies are more recommendable to your boss or your girlfriend or your mother or whatever it is. You know what I mean? But some movies are pretty recommendable for almost anyone, like The Princess Bride, right? Like almost anyone can appreciate, even if it doesn't become their favorite, they can appreciate it. So I think that I think about all these factors, right? So I realized that Hope, A New Hope, was really high in almost any measure, right? It's really high from a sake of like cultural literacy. Even if you don't really like Star Wars or sci-fi or adventure or whatever, you should probably know who Darth Vader is. You should probably know what a lightsaber and the Death Star. They're just like pieces of our culture you should be familiar with. It's important for that reason, right? It was very innovative, groundbreaking filmmaking when they made it. It has a pretty broad appeal. It's not overly violent. They're not dropping F-bombs or anything. It's okay for kids. It's you see what I'm saying? Like it just hits. Not only do I like it a lot, but it hits all these other bases for almost any sort of standard or measure or list that I'm going to make. And so over time, I feel like it's crept up to be my number one pick, favorite, best, top, whatever. I don't know what phrase to use exactly, but there's others that contend for that, like Princess Bride. And another thing I recognize is that it's, for me, what a person might pick to be that type of movie, it's going to depend a lot on fact when you saw it. Does that make sense? Like what your age when you saw it, what was going on in culture at that moment. And I think there are certain movies that the very similar movies keep coming out, like, I don't know, every generation or every 10 years or whatever. There's some coming of age story. There's some epic adventure movie. There's, when we were growing up, it might have been like Indiana Jones or, I don't know, 2001. And now we have, the Avengers or, there's going to be, at one point it might have been The Graduate and then Ferris Bueller's Day Off. And now we have Eighth Grade, and it's a lot of times these movies of some ilk or some genre, whatever you pick is the best one, even if it somehow objectively is, right? Let's just say there was some mathematical formula to determine what the best movie was, or God came out of the sky and said,
that one,
A New Hope is the best movie. It still wouldn't change the emotional impact that the 9-year-old has when they see whatever it was for them, right? Their generation's version of, exactly. Well, not that. Screw that movie.
Look, the movie is better.
I don't care about nostalgia. It sucks.
A lot of people give that movie crap. I think it's better it is not my favorite. It is better than people let on sometimes. But like, if you're 9, that's your Star Wars, and and you can't change that. It's the same thing.
I don't want to go off too much on Phantom Menace. Well, actually, I do want to go off on Phantom Menace because I care. But what I really mean to make is the point that another way I evaluate a movie, another thing that will affect how highly I think of it or rate it or speak on it or whatever, is what you maybe should expect from it, right? If a college kid with his mom's credit card cobbles together some movie on a $7,000 budget, and it's, let's say on some sort of objective scale, it's a 7. Whereas some well-known, big-name director with top actors and a multi-$100 million budget, they put together a movie and it's a 7. Well, guess which one of those 7s I'm giving more credit to, right? The big director with a big budget, he better make it. That's like the baseline. Of course, 7's kind of disappointing. You should be making an 8 or a 9. But if some young, hot, innovative, working on a shoestring budget director can put together a 7, like, wow, good job. People should check this out. Give this person credit. Look what they're doing. They should have a future. They need to get a bigger budget next time. So I feel like George Lucas has this piece of culture on his hands that everyone wants to be a part of. He can get the best editors, the best script writers. He could have had the best movie of all time, but instead he got a bunch of yes men and made an okay movie and kind of spoiled something that was important to me and important to culture, and he did something kind of mediocre with it, so anyway, I'll step back a little bit. Someone out there that loves Phantom Menace is probably getting irked at me right now.
This guy right here.
Yeah.
It's all right,
I'm
John.
telling you, I could go scene by scene. I don't think there's a scene in that movie that doesn't have a flaw, at least, if not a problem. I'm telling you, it frustrates me to watch that movie. It is so flawed. Anyway, I'll back up a little. I'm trying to stay positive. Sorry.
Look, man, I have you here for you to talk about the way you view the world, your journey to becoming a nerd, and the things you love. If the Phantom Menace sucks is what you want to say, that's what I want to hear. And
Phantom Menace is highly disappointing and full of flaws. That's what I want to say.
I will agree with you. But it also has one of the greatest pieces of music that John Williams ever wrote in it.
It does. It has some great parts, and that adds to the disappointment and the frustration, right? You see the potential. They had Darth Maul, just to image him, right? Like, if you remember, like, the build-up to that movie coming out, especially for already a Star Wars fan, like, it's so exciting, and you see this, whoa, right? But in reality, you don't know anything about him. You don't have a reason to hate him. You don't know his background. Like, even when he's fighting Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, like, what are they fighting over? Like, what happens if one side wins or loses? Like, what's the result of this battle? Why do I care? They didn't, does that make sense? Like, in addition to like plot point flaws throughout the movie, I think they failed to get any emotional attachment to anything, including Darth Maul. I think that the character that it maybe is supposed, it's hard to even know who the protagonist is supposed to be. Like, Anakin doesn't show up for like halfway through the movie, and he's just a kid that can't really affect anything around him. He can't make decisions. He just bumbles his way through stuff. Like, what? It's hard for me to really root for him or be proud of anything he does. He like accidentally blows up the control station or whatever. It wasn't because he was intelligent or clever. He just bumbled his way through it. And
I can't
I don't know.
Can't 100% remember the context of what we were talking about, but on a previous stream, might have been for a season of Rebels or something along those lines. Anyway, Kentucky Fried Chicken or John's Fried Chicken. That's what that means, right? But basically, I said the Force is magical space luck.
Yeah, but I don't. Okay, so I'll try to. I apologize, John, because I bet we get along great on a lot of things.
I bet you do.
I shouldn't harp on this one so much, and I'll try to not send this thought on Phantom Menace so much, but just in general. Part of why I'm frustrated with Phantom Menace, because this is the thing I want from film. Or I say film, TV, literature, media. I don't know. I want or I don't mind for the setup to be coincidence or fantasy. Right? If you give me a world where like two twins are separated at birth, or the Force exists, or we've colonized Mars, something that might be hard to swallow, but you set the world up, and then from there you progress logically. The characters' decisions and skills resolve the plot. Cool. But you can't use chance and coincidence and magic to resolve the plot. That's where I get frustrated. If you spend the whole movie showing the soldier go through basic training and learning how to be a sharpshooter with his gun, but at the end of the movie, 14 guys with Uzi shoot at him and no one hits, that has nothing to do with his army training. He's just getting lucky. Does that make sense? Like, you have to resolve it with what you have built up. You have to resolve it with logic and character, skill, talent, evolution, whatever it is. You can't resolve it with chance and luck and magic. So,
like, are you familiar with Sanderson's laws of magic?
I probably am vaguely, but not specifically.
Basically, he says that the more limitations there are, and the more not limitations, but the more well understood your magic is, the more it can be used to actually resolve plot issues.
Okay, yeah.
Because it's defined, you know what its limitations are. You know what it we were just talking about Avatar: The Last Airbender a moment ago. That magic system is very well and strictly defined, and they use those abilities to overcome their obstacles quite frequently. But it's not; they can't just manifest a new power all of a sudden. Now, some of them do learn to do new things, new and interesting ways of doing that bending, but even that still usually makes sense within the context of the element they're bending to begin with.
I love Avatar. I start off by saying I wish I'd worn my Avatar shirt, but have you seen The Dragon Prince?
I have not. It's on my list, but I have not quite got there yet.
You should definitely see it for a bunch of reasons. And one, it's the same makers, it's the same aesthetic, it's the same style, it's a lot of the same themes, but they do one thing better than Avatar. There's one thing I like that they do better than Avatar, is that the cost of magic is more specific. In Avatar, it's still hard to know what the limits are, right? It still seems like sometimes Aang can do something that later on, if he had done it, it would have stopped the dilemma. It's a little bit inconsistent, and we can chalk it up to like and I say Aang, but the different characters, they're exhausted maybe, or they weren't prepared for what just happened or whatever. But in the Dragon Prince, it's the same. It's a little more expanded. Instead of like earth, fire, water, it's like earth, fire, water, sun, moon, stars. But it's the same idea. There's different sort of schools of magic, and one is dark magic. By the way, the setup, the first episode is just exposition. It's just like a narrator telling you the history of the world. It's really cool. And
Amy wants to know where she can watch Dragon.
Netflix. It's Netflix.
Awesome. There you go.
The setup is that the elf and human kingdoms have divided because the humans were using dark magic, and elves was like, no, you can't do that. So there's a war, and they separated, and there's like a dividing line, and a dragon defends this line, and the dragon's egg has been stolen, and there's some plot surrounding this. It's really interesting because the elves they send like a tactical force who is the female lead. You know, the one thing I appreciate is more of a female lead. It's kind of an ensemble cast, but she's going to like. They're going to like exact revenge on the humans for stealing this dragon egg. So they're going to kill the human king and the human prince. But the human prince is just like a 7-year-old kid. She's like, I'm not killing this kid, you know? And then they discover that it was like a wizard has stolen the dragon, and they still have the egg. So they're going to try to return it to the elf kingdom to demonstrate, look, the human prince returned the dragon egg. Like, the humans aren't evil. You know what I mean? Like, it's a lot of shows about the humans and elves realizing what they think about each other isn't the reality. Does that make sense? And
yes.
Anyway, it goes on and on with these themes. Yeah. It's so great in a million ways. But one thing that they do that I like more than Avatar is a little bit more specific about the limits and costs of magic, which I think is super important in D&D, literature, movies, whatever it is. You know?
Yep. I completely agree. The limitations are sometimes equally as interesting as the ability itself. And just sort of like thinking back to Avatar: The Last Airbender, there's as Christina, I'm not gonna butcher your last name, but talks about how their bending is very grounded in their physicality, which we see anytime that they're bound.
Mm-hmm.
Like the ability to do these martial arts moves is part of that. What is part of the limitation?
Yeah,
we see when characters are bound or injured or what have you, that their ability to bend is.
So this is a little bit of a tangent from. I mean, we don't have a point, but something I was swirling around a minute ago. The idea that I want it to at least be theoretically possible for me to predict where the plot is going. Does that make sense? And so when someone could just magically do something all of a sudden in the last 7 minutes of the movie, like, okay, well, then I couldn't have predicted that. I don't think that's good writing. Does that make sense? I think things need to be set up and established and followed through. And that's a key thing I'm looking for in movies. But again, I'm a movie buff in general. I don't even need a movie to have plot. If it has good editing, good lighting, good music, I don't mind if the if the plot. I still don't want the plot to be flawed or inconsistent. But plot isn't as important or isn't the sole piece. It's not the single most important thing of a film or piece of literature. There's all character development is super important. And especially when it comes to film, things like lighting and editing and music it's really hard to underestimate how important all those things are, even though plot tends to be focused on, especially by big blockbuster type things.
Right. Although the ones that usually end up doing really, really well have that sort of flashiness to them and the plot and the interesting plot, but they have a character that you can care about and get behind.
Yeah.
Amy's got a really good question. What's your favorite bad movie?
It's a tricky question. Like, I can tell you some movies that come to mind, but the thing is, I'm not sure they're really bad. They're movies that might be thought of as bad or underrated or mocked or something, but for example, Napoleon Dynamite. I love Napoleon Dynamite, and I think it's a movie that most people think of as goofy or bad, but I think it's actually a good movie. I think it's actually well edited and well paced and well performed, and actually has a good theme. If you haven't seen it, I shouldn't ramble about it too much, but just here's just one thought. Throughout the course of that movie, Napoleon is basically trying to be something he's not. He's always trying to impress people, right? He's trying to be accepted. And that's a theme we can relate to. Even if you don't think of yourself as the sort of dorky nerd that he is, one, you might be more than you realize. Two, it's not that bad. But three, it's a relatable thing to want to fit in and to sometimes try to be something you're not to do so. But the sort of end of the movie, to me, the highlight of the movie is when he is just himself for a minute. He and the girl are, what do you call the thing, the ball and a stick that goes around the pole? I can't think what that's called.
Tetherball?
Tetherball, yeah. And at first he's trying to like back kick and flip around, but eventually he just hits it. She hits it and he hits it and she hits it, and they kind of, and he just does a normal regular thing, and they have this bonding moment, and it's really beautiful. And to me, that's what the movie is about, is him just deciding to be himself and not trying to be something he's not. So anyway, I hope Shay is right that no one thinks of that as a bad movie. But
I'm seeing a couple of people in the chat saying they like Potter says he hates it, but I also, Potter is our pet Irish troll. I have no idea if he's being genuine or not. I love the man to death, don't get me wrong, but I can never tell if he's being genuine. Which leads me to this. What is your favorite poultry-themed comic book film adaptation?
Oh, obviously Howard the Duck.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. That is literally the response he is trying to get out of you.
I know.
I love the guy, but man, you have just become Potter's favorite guest I've ever had on this show. Immediately.
I'm just a well-versed guest.
I haven't seen that movie since I was a kid.
Yeah, same. Yeah. Okay, so
what is your least favorite movie then?
I'd have a hard time picking just one, but I'm telling you, Phantom Menace is pretty high up on my least favorite. Yeah, like again, it's just because of like the potential and the expectation that was left down there. There's a lot of other examples of similar. Most of my least favorite movies are going to be movies that are probably actually not that bad. They just had so much potential that was left on the table. Does that make sense? I don't think about my least favorite as much as I think about my favorite, so I might not be able to whip up the best examples off the top of my head.
I'm with you on that. I have this space, and I started doing this so I could talk about the things I loved, not the things that I hated.
I do think it is worth thinking about for what it's worth, but in our limited time, I'd rather think about something more positive.
Let's do that. Go ahead if you got something to say.
Yeah, well, it's still connected to movies, and also to lists. I'm gonna go off a little bit, so I wanted to catch it while we're still on movies, but warn you, don't lose what you're about to ask me. There's a website called Flickchart. Everyone needs to check this out. The idea is they just take two movies and present them to you, and you have the option to say I haven't seen this one or that one, or I haven't seen either of them. But if you've seen both of them, you pick this one, and there's two more, and they just randomly show you two movies at a time. And as you pick them, they start to shuffle into order. Like this is higher than this is higher than this, and you can. It takes a few dozen or a few score. You probably have to do like 100 before it's even very meaningful. And they present like everything. They've kind of expanded their database recently that they're doing things that maybe are questionable whether they're movies or not. Even like they're doing like, Bugs Bunny cartoons and the Queen's Gambit and stuff like that. I think they plan to expand it to more all media, but if you don't want to count TV shows or cartoons or something, just say, I haven't seen those, and just do all movies. Anyway, it will start to form a sort of a ranked list. And it's a little random based on the order things were presented to you and which two came up at a time. But you can even choose to you can filter by like your top 100 or by comedies or by the 90s. And so you can start, and you can also just add a movie to your chart. You could just type in, A New Hope, and it will compare it to the other movies on your list, and you pick one over the other, and it'll put it in its place. And over time, with enough selections, you start to get a pretty good, at least, range of ranking of your own movies.
That's
And it also
cool.
becomes a really good resource. So you can like filter it by the 90s and it'll show you your top 90 movies or your top Steven Spielberg movies, your top action movies or whatever it is. It's a really great resource. It's a little bit of a time sink, but it'll make you think a whole lot about
Oh no, a
why you
time
like
sink.
movies. Yeah, yeah. Especially when like two movies that you really love get put up against each other. Like a lot of times you're going through and it's like easy choices. It's like, like I don't know, Rocky 4 versus 2001. Like, all right, 2001 easy, Bottle Rocket versus, I don't know, Avengers 19 or something. Okay, I like Bottle Rocket more, But every now and then it's like two movies that I like a lot that maybe are really similar or maybe are very different. Like they're hard to compare to each other. But that's the dilemma of flick chart. You just have to pick one or the other. And so a lot of times at the beginning, I would like refresh the page. Like I can't decide to refresh the page. But eventually I got to the point where like I would think about it for like a day. I would just leave it open. It was like couldn't sleep at night trying to come up. And so that's why part of
Okay,
where I got
man.
this idea of thinking about why I like one over another. Like is it because I think I would recommend it to more people, or I think it was like innovative filmmaking, or do I just love it because I saw it when I was 12? It gets you to think about all these factors, and it'll really, when people say that's one of my favorite movies, in my mind, I always know when they say that, they don't really know what they're saying. And this isn't a negative judgment. It's just most people haven't thought about it obsessively like I had. There's probably 100 movies that you would say that's one of my favorite movies. Well, I want to know what are your top 10? And you're going to have a hard time figuring that out. It's, you know what I mean? And Flickchart is a great tool for it. So,
Okay. There you go. I might go waste a little time on that this week.
everyone should. It can also be like a social network. You can like add people and so you can see my rankings. I think I'm on there as the movie man. I wish I had been Dancing Sean if I could go back in time, but you could see all my rankings. You can see other people's rankings. You can put discussions, like when you make a decision, you can like type your reason why or see other people's reasons why and stuff like that.
Right. Cool. I'm going to check it out. Flick Chart.
Yeah, totally. It's an amazing resource for film fans.
Cool.
Hopefully John hasn't tuned me out. John, hopefully you're still there and have some appreciation for Flickchart.
Yeah. Okay, well, Guilty Undertaker, he's got a good question. What are your thoughts on the Cinema Sins style of film criticism?
I'm not quite sure what he means by that. He's still in the chat. I'm assuming Cinema Sins must be like certain things you're not supposed to do. I don't know.
No, Cinema Sins is a YouTube channel that does movie reviews. And it's the sister channel to Cinema Wins, where they will literally like go through and take a tally, like, this is bad in this movie, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. And they'll be like, 97 sins in this film. But then they'll do it with wins as well, all the great stuff that's in a... So
I haven't seen that, so I don't have a specific opinion. It seems like a neat idea.
Okay.
On so far on my channel, the movie reviews that I've been doing, what I've been trying to do is make 1-minute reviews, partly because I want it to be short enough for people to watch, right? It's hard to commit 20 minutes or something, but 1 minute I think is pretty easy. And I'm trying to make it spoiler free. I'm trying to be able to talk about the movie in a superficial way that's not going to spoil details of the plot, but it'll give you an idea what kind of movie it's going to be. Like, I could say that Indiana Jones is like an adventure movie. It's set in like 1940s-ish time period. It's a Steven Spielberg movie. It's sort of a classic movie. I could give you a lot of sort of extraneous, superficial information without telling you what the plot is about. And maybe sometimes you can even give a little bit of the plot without revealing key points or resolution.
Yeah, the big twist at the end.
Yeah. But my idea is to give you an idea if this is what you want to see or what you're in the mood for right now. Like if you want to see a romantic comedy, okay, not Indiana Jones. Doesn't mean you don't like it or it's not good, but it's just not what you like or what you want to see right now. Anyway, that's kind of what I'm trying to do with my 1-minute reviews. And so far, I'm trying to do movies I like because there's a lot of movies I like. I could do 500 of these 1-minute reviews. And so I think a lot less. Like I said, I do think it's important to think about why a movie is good and bad. And so you think, and sometimes good and bad is kind of relative. Like, I have to have seen some bad movies to know what bad is or why something is good. You have to have a reference point. And also the fact is there are still so many good movies. You can't have 500 favorite movies. You know what I mean? You have to have some reason to pick one over the other. And so, figuring out why a movie is bad can still help you figure out why one movie is your 20th favorite and one is your 25th favorite. It could still, that process is still really good. So
right. Yeah, Wayne's World versus Reservoir Dogs.
That's the type of thing. Flickchart will bring up. Yeah. And by the way, do I discuss what I would pick here?
Yeah, why not?
I don't have an instant answer. I'm pretty sure if I were to look at my chart, I bet have Reservoir Dogs higher. I think it has slipped over time. That's another thing I observe over time. I see my movies shuffle around a little bit. But I think that Wayne's World is look. Let me be clear. I like it. It's funny. It's good in a lot of ways. But I'm just trying to give you reasons why I would pick one over the other. So I'm trying to be clarified that I'm not trying to rag on Wayne's World. But Wayne's World is a little bit more generic, less unique, right? It's kind of a goofy comedy. And there's a lot of goofy comedies out there. Yeah. Reservoir Dogs is a little bit more unique of a film. I think it might also be a little bit more historically important. It was Quentin Tarantino's first movie, and he had a big impact on filmmaking. Whereas even Wayne's World wasn't, Austin Powers is more important if you want to give credit to like the impact of Mike Myers or whatever, or even Saturday Night Live. Mike Myers has had impact beyond Wayne's World. And I think that Wayne's World on one hand might be a little bit more generically recommendable. Like it might be, it's Reservoir Dogs is not a movie I'd watch with my mom. I wouldn't really want to watch Wayne's World with my mom either. If I remember right, it's a little bit juvenile. But my personal opinion is going to have me pick the more serious movie over the more juvenile movie. Doesn't necessarily mean it's better or worse, but I know that's my tendency. So there's probably more reasons I could keep digging into. But for all those, I guess I should also point out, Reservoir Dogs is just freaking genius writing. Man, that scene, the story within a story, when Tim Roth is telling a story about when he was telling a story to the cops of how, I don't know if you remember that scene, but that was so intense and suspenseful and clever to be pieced together. The idea of the movie as a whole, if you haven't seen it, it's about a bank robbery, and you see everything but the bank robbery. Anyway.
So it's a great movie.
Throw those flick chart options at me and my mind just spins out. And I love the process of 1, reflecting on the movies. That's just fun. 2, trying to figure out why I would pick one or the other. And then it also becomes this resource of discovering my list, so hopefully a bunch of you are out there doing it right now.
Yeah. I mean, you can multitask. I don't care. But that's a great answer. Wow, Sean, you're a good guest, man. I can just hand you a question and off you go. It's good stuff. It's easy for me. I've done a lot of these various I Know That Nerds over the years that I've been doing this channel, and I see why Aziz is like, you keeps bringing you back. As brought you into the fold. You're good at this. I've got a question that is always asked by the lovely Jaded Redhead, or Jaded as I like to call her. She always asks my guests the same question on I Know That Nerd, and that is, what is the best concert you've ever been to? And what is the worst concert you've ever been to?
Well, I'm gonna have a similar answer to the worst concert. Like, I haven't thought enough about what it is. It's probably something that got canceled or something. I don't know. But here's the other thing. Even to answer the best one, I don't know. Okay, here's the thing. How do you define a concert? There's sort of this standard. There's sort of this standard, like, you're gonna be with a group of people with a band playing on stage. But what if it's a DJ? Like, if you go to see Skrillex, is that a
yes?
concert?
It's a concert.
So yeah. And see, I was into electronic dance music for a long time, so I went to a lot of music events. They might be called concerts, clubs, raves. I don't know what the right term is. But I mean, I'm telling you, I went to like hundreds, I think, and a lot of them blurred together. And there's a few of them that are sort of like highlight memories to me, but it's more about the people that I was, the community, that crowd that I was going out with and stuff. And and a lot of them would be artists that most of you guys probably went. I was really into drum and bass. So like, if any of you guys know who Andy C or LTJ Bookham, but I've probably seen LTJ Bookham 10 times. So I don't remember which one was the best one. But most people, you're probably thinking about like bands. You know what I mean? And in fact, I'll tell you, one time I went to, I've been to a few hip hop concerts, but one lineup was amazing. It was like Wu-Tang and Public Enemy and like a lot of like big 4 or 5 big headline hip hop acts. It wasn't that good. It was a little like it didn't, I don't know how to say it. It didn't have the same energy, maybe because it wasn't live instruments. A lot of times they were all just sort of like shambling around on stage, hanging out with each other more so than performing. Anyway, it wasn't even bad, but I tell you, some contenders were the Toadies, because everyone in the audience knew every line to every song. Like that was a really unique experience.
The Toadies.
Yeah, when
the
everyone was
Toadies
singing along with all the songs. Yeah.
I never got to see the Toadies. The thing is, the Toadies are from very nearby where I live.
Yeah.
But, and they have like a song or two that kind of hit big and did get national play. But most people don't even know, like they're considered kind of a one-hit wonder or a flash in the pan.
I had a great album.
Rubberneck
was a great album. Yeah. And I had a couple of good albums too. So beyond that, but
yes, but you're right. Rubberneck was like a masterpiece. That's the one that's got Possum Kingdom on it and Tyler, both of which are great songs. I Come From the Water.
Yeah. I think that's my favorite one on the album.
But I'm just surprised how many people have never even heard of the Toadies. Then you play a couple of songs and
they're like, I know that song. Yeah. Well, you should know the whole album. They're good. Yeah. But let me think. Another, I would say, three of my favorite bands. I think 3 bands that like contend for top 10. And like I said, I'm a list person and I've really been in all kinds of music. But 3 of my, I see you read his comment there.
Yeah, that's it was too good to let it slip by. That needed to go up.
3 of my favorite bands are Clutch. They're like a heavy blues rock band from Virginia. They've been around like, I don't know, for 30 years or something. And The Sword, which they're not super well known, but they are one of the best classic thrash metal bands. I think they've also been around for like 20 years, but they're like, I don't know, like they are what I feel like Metallica should have become. I feel like Metallica kind of like popularized themselves, but I think The Sword is like carrying the torch of that classic thrash metal feel. And in Mastodon, and they're more like progressive metal. I freaking love, and they're from Atlanta too, by the way. I think The Sword's from Texas too, also, by the way. And they are. If you haven't listened to them, if you don't know them, you should check them out. They have several Game of Thrones songs. But anyway, they all toured together at one point. They were all 3 of them. I think I've seen those 3 bands around 10 times each, but all 3 together once. And also, Aziz knows The Sword. I think he's friends with the bassist, and a couple times I got to hang out with him backstage, and it's hard to compete with that for like a best concert experience, to like hang out backstage with the band and like they're like coming up with a playlist on a napkin right before they go out there, and then afterwards we went to like a bar with them, and that was definitely not the standard, concert experience. It might be cheating for me to pick that, but man, it is a highlight.
But that's not cheating, man. That is the thing you experienced in your life. Why would that not be the best concert?
Yeah.
The one where you got to hang out with them afterwards. That's pretty awesome, though. Yeah, I'm a little bit of a metalhead, not hardcore, I dabble here and there. But yeah, I'm going to have to check out The Sword. The other 2, Mastodon and Clutch, I know them, but
The Sword has one song, if I had to pick a favorite, How Heavy This Axe. But they also have one, Take the Black, which guess what that's about,
Oh, really? Okay,
yeah, I'm telling you, cool. I have them in my brain often as I think about Game of Thrones. Yeah, their newer albums have like mellowed out a little bit. They're more bluesy, even country influenced. But their first 2 albums are like driving thrash, freaking awesome metal. Also, let me clarify. Like I'm talking about these metal bands, which I love, and man, if I had to pick a genre of music, I guess I might pick metal. I'm not even sure about that though, but I'm not. I mean, I guess on some level I'm a metalhead, but I'm not purely a metalhead. I love hip hop as much as metal.
Yeah,
as much
yeah. Like you're a
drum and
music
bass,
lover. Much like you got
my
Hendrix right
favorite.
behind you, man.
Yeah, I think if I have to pick my favorite band, it's the Beatles. I think number
Me
2.
too.
Yeah, I think my
Beatles are the
number
best.
2 is probably Nirvana. If I have to pick a number 2 band,
I
it's
think I
probably
go
Nirvana.
towards
But
Queen, but
yeah.
Nirvana's way up there.
I put a little effort one time, kind of recently, into my top 50 bands, and it's tough. It's really, especially the more different music. Just being older, man. When you're older, I'm not necessarily like smarter or better or anything. I've had more years to see more movies or listen to more songs or to think about it more, and it just gets tougher because it's not like good bands stop coming out when you're 17. You know what I mean? But it's not like as you get older, you stop liking those bands from when you were 17. You might be a little bit more embarrassed about Def Leppard, but oh, go Amy.
Yeah. Good taste. I've seen a lot of love for a lot of the music that you brought up. People are saying Everclear.
Oh, they're good. Yeah, I like them. They're another one that probably
because you
I
mentioned
think they have
them.
at least 2 albums, but probably everyone knows that one song. But then if you listen to that album, they're like, wow, that was a good album.
Eclectic is good, says Belle, and I agree. Like I do enjoy the hip hop, as I have famously said in the past. But yeah, like it's easier for me to list the types of music that I really don't like than it is to all the types of music that I do like.
So, who do you have a favorite or about 5-ish favorite hip hop acts?
Hip hop acts? I mean, Eminem is fantastic. Lil Dicky is so funny and so clever that I have to throw him in there.
I give him credit for the effort in his videos too.
Yeah, I mean the man is putting in the work. I would have to think more about it.
Is it like newer for you to be getting into it all? Like
yes,
we're close to the same age. I think I loved Public Enemy when I was a kid.
I was not like. I really didn't start getting into music until, say, my high school days. And that's when it was like early Chili Peppers, Metallica was big, like exploding with Enter Sandman and all that. Yeah. They were already big, but, sort of like going full mainstream. So, yeah, I was really big into Faith No More back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah, I like Iron Maiden. I think... Iron Maiden and Public Enemy were probably my favorite bands in high school. Iron Maiden, Public Enemy, and Def Leppard.
For me, it was probably Faith No More, Metallica, and Red Hot Chili Peppers. Okay. Mozart and Beethoven is what I was trying to get to. John loves his classical music, and it's good too.
Am I supposed to pick between them, or he's just saying those are his favorites?
Those are probably his favorites. Okay. Somebody just mentioned Ice and FireCon in the chat. Are you going to Ice and FireCon this year?
Yes. Oh, yes. Excited about it. Yeah.
Then I'll see you there.
Yeah. Cool.
And,
good.
And so will several of the people in the chat. Several of them are going to be there. I know Kelly's going to be there. Kate's going to be there. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah. You mentioned earlier, but we met at the first Con of Thrones. And the same way that I was talking about how much part of my life and my social circle and everything magic has been, it hasn't been as long. It hasn't had the chance yet, but this Game of Thrones community has been as impactful in my life. It's how I found my wife, like I moved my home, and yeah, it's really had a huge impact on me. And so
hold that thought for just a second.
Okay. Yeah. Is Steven going to get his Stark banner?
I'm going to see if I can find it in here.
Is that the World of Ice and Fire you just got?
It is. Do you know what I'm looking for?
I'm not sure what you're looking for. Did I sign your book?
I think you did.
Oh.
I've got a Shea. I've got a Aziz.
I feel bad if I did because I don't quite remember it. I can imagine having done it, but that's my signature. Yeah, it is.
With
Yep.
the little beard and everything. That was the first Con of Thrones.
Yeah, I definitely remember meeting you because you had the big banner, big Stark banner.
For sure.
And I think it was at like a. I didn't even realize what it was. The panel, if you will. I think it was called a meet and greet. It's like a podcaster meet and greet.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that it was going to be the podcasters there that were doing panels, like meeting each other.
Oh, I see.
But it was like for people to meet each other. It was like the fans of the podcast to meet the people doing the podcast. So, and I didn't know anyone. I didn't know the other podcasts or anyone. So it was like but you stood out like in more ways than one. So yeah, it was a highlight moment. I mean, cons are full of highlight moments. If anyone hasn't gone, man, you should go. I don't know if it's too late to get tickets to Ice and Fire Con, but if anyone out there is on the fence, you should do it. And if anyone is past the point of being able to plan for it, start planning for next year.
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'm going to be there. My two regular co-hosts, Nessie and John, will both be there. This fantastic young woman will be there, as will this one. And several other of my friends that are sort of like part of my core community here on Here Be Dragons. So yeah, just fingers crossed. It's gonna be awesome, unless the world ends between now and then.
Yeah, seems like the world. Well, I don't know.
I mean, like
it's like
we've only got to make it 6 more weeks, y'all.
Some sort of karma thing where like one thing gets better and another thing gets worse.
Well, we've been going for a little over an hour now, so if you don't mind, I'm gonna do my mid-roll.
Don't mind at all.
Great. Oh, hold on, cough coming. Excuse me. Okay. Well, this is the part of the video where I remember that I'm on YouTube and I say, please hit the like button. It looks like this, kind of. The little subscribe button. It's red down there. I would take it as a personal favor if you would go ahead and subscribe. Not a big channel, but trying to grow it, just trying to get there. There's a lot of new faces in the chat today, so I want to specifically say welcome to all the new faces. This is kind of what we do here. I do a lot of these I Know That Nerd interviews, and then beyond that, we just have nerdy conversations about nerdy topics. Next week, we are doing a retro review of a movie that is 25 years old this year. The fantastic Luc Besson film, The Fifth
The Professional?
Element.
Oh, The Fifth Element.
Sorry. Yeah. I mean, The Professional is a great movie, but it's not a sci-fi classic.
True, fair.
Yeah, and I do tend to skew sci-fi fantasy on the channel. But yeah, we'll be doing a retro review of that next week, The Fifth Element. Not sure what we're doing the week after that. I don't know. We'll figure it out. Sean, what do you got coming up over there on History of Westeros, or anything planned to come out on your channel soon?
On my channel, my next project is going to be to do the little minute preview shorts I'm doing for all the Academy Award nominees for Best Picture, which there are 10 of this year.
Nice.
I want to wait till the actual Oscars happen so I can say, like what they won as part of my review. So I'm gonna try to get them all out like that Monday, but I don't know if I'm realistically. That's a lot to piece together in a short period of time. I'm trying to do as much prep ahead of time to be ready for it, but it's, as you probably know, like people out there, man, I cannot tell you how much credit I want to give editors, podcasters, filmmakers, whatever. Every minute you see, if you go and watch someone's video, my little 1 minute video probably has 4 or 5 hours behind that 1 minute that I put on there. It takes a lot.
John is not wrong. He gets all the not sci-fi fantasy stuff, if you know what I mean.
On History of Westeros, we're going through the World of Ice and Fire book, and we're almost literally doing like a page per episode. We are going super deep in every little bit of it. I'm not really, I don't think I'm exaggerating. At the rate we're going, we're going to be doing it for like 3 years. So take your time, George. Take your time with
George, please don't take your time. Don't listen to this man. I'm not in the habit of contradicting my guests, but no, I'm not. Anyway, we don't need to go down that road. I'm not gonna beat George up either.
Yeah, right now we're talking about Valyria, and that's we're kind of dancing around, the potential cause of the others and comparisons to Rome, and it's in the book. It's like 2 pages and maybe 3 or 4. I mean, of course, it's mentioned throughout the book and even in the main series of books. But I think we've already spent 6-ish hours on Valyria, and we're going back to it next week. So yeah.
Yeah, just circling back to your comment about editors, that is why I live stream only.
Yep.
Go live, talk for a couple hours, end it. That's it. Unscripted. Like, it's way easier for me to make one of these because I just have to be prepared to ask questions or whatever. A couple more things before we get back into the genuine conversation. Got to make sure I give my patrons their shout outs. Our Patreon Kaya Council consists of this gentleman right here, just getting off of work, ridiculous Ed Tollett, our alpha patron, Sean, we love you, drive safe on the way home. But, and the rest of the High Council consists of Lord John Bronsteen the Wise and Sixto Sounds, a.k.a. JP the Axe Grinder. And they are supported by the nobility of the realm, including Ryan Stavka, the Russian Quartermaster, Reflective Rambling, Arch-Maester Emma, Kate, Mistress of the House of Books, and Jared Kozal, Doctor of Dragons. Thank you, patrons. We love you so much. You keep the lights on over here, and we really, really appreciate it. We also have a Slack group that is very active. Several of the people that you will see in the chat, we keep the conversation going all week over on our Slack group. We organize watch parties, we trade memes, we post our Wordle scores. I'm
a Wordle nerd, by the way.
Me too. Me too. We'll get to it. But yeah, if that's we also have an ongoing Zoom call that everyone is welcome to join. If that sounds like something you would like to dip your toe into, and you are not currently a member of our Slack group, send me an email at we3dragons@gmail.com. We3 spelled out dragons@gmail.com, and I will happily send you an invitation. Matthew says the Slack is nerd paradise. Thank you, my friend. Matthew is in there and posts regularly. But yeah, if that sounds like something you'd like to be a part of, just send that email and I'll get you in. And there are dozens of us who have made it it is our little corner of the internet, our little found community, our little found family home. Yeah. So that's a thing. And that's all I can think of for the mid-roll. Come to Ice and Fire Con. I want to hang out with you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Think of something later. Feel free to interrupt me.
Yeah. Well, this is a very free-form style of thing. Like, we've been going for an hour. Talk about the mid-roll. Make sure you hit these highlights. Let's move on. So, what were we talking about before we got? I guess we were talking about music.
We've been bouncing around.
We've talked music. We've talked movies. Let's talk about some TV that what you've been watching lately on TV. Like do you have a show that's got new episodes coming out right now? That's something you're.
A couple shows. Let's see. Star Trek Discovery.
Okay, I'm current.
Resident Alien. That show has surprised me. How that's Alan Tudyk. From a bunch of things, but
I love Alan Tudyk.
Yeah, it's a good mix of sort of sci-fi, mystery, comedy, drama. It's surprisingly good. what else? Better Things with Pamela Adlon. It's basically it's on the surface, it's kind of like a comedy, but it's really more of a drama about like a single mom, basically, kind of slice of life. Let me think. I know I'm gonna blank because there's like 5. What's the new one with Rhys Darby? Our Flag Means Death.
Oh,
Taika Waititi kind of pirate sort of comedy venture. Where am I at? I know there's at least a couple more that I'm just blanking on.
Are you watching Picard?
But I've got it in the queue because I've got too many other things going on. There's a couple other shows that I'm watching that don't have new episodes coming out, so I'm trying to think of the ones that are actually new episodes coming out. And I feel like I'm forgetting at least one, but I'm also catching up on Schitt's Creek, Bob's Burgers. Killing Eve. That's another one that's coming out currently. I watch a lot of TV. I've realized that TV is like, I mean, here's a few things. In general, I think I most appreciate about media is character development.
Mm-hmm.
You get more time for that in TV shows than movies.
Which is why we do a lot more talking about TV than movies here. We do movies also, but
movies are good for like plot-centric stuff and for like big action, special effects or whatever. But it's not like you can't have a good drama in a movie, but you just get more time to develop characters and suspense and stuff with the TV show. Better Call Saul is the best show. I'm telling everyone out there right now. I think it's a legit contender for all-time best show. And it doesn't have new episodes coming out right now, but it's like a currently running show. New episodes are coming up in a few weeks. And if you don't know, it's a sort of a spin-off. It's a prequel to Breaking Bad. And at one point I thought I was like, being kind of like radical on eggshells to say that Better Call Saul is better than Breaking Bad. But at this point, I don't even think Breaking Bad fans will disagree with me. Better Call Saul is just better than Breaking Bad. It is a fantastic, powerful, intriguing, moving, beautiful show. It's if it's not like, if someone out there watches it like this isn't the best show on TV, it's only top 5. All right, well, it's top 5. You should be watching.
Right.
Better Call Saul is really, really good. Yeah.
Right. I got you. I hear you. Matthew is asking, have any of us watched Arcane? I have not watched Arcane. It is on my list.
I think I've seen the first 3-ish episodes. So I'm stalled out a little bit on it. It's good. I like it. I recommend it. Here's another thing too. One reason I like to think about, I like to watch so many movies and TV shows and think about them and talk about them and rank them and figure out how and why I'm ranking them, is because there's just not enough time to watch everything that's out there. You just cannot. There's just too much. There's not enough time to watch all the good stuff out there. You know what I mean? Like, even if you like eliminate all the quote unquote bad stuff, which, maybe you can debate what's good or bad, but like even based on your own personal taste, everyone's going to have some sort of threshold where you start to get, here's another thought I have when it comes to, here's another tool I try to use when I'm ranking things. Like a 1 to 10 scale is decent, but tricky. I believe when I do it, that I'm doing it on a sort of a bell curve, right? Like there's a very small percent of things that I give 10 and then a few more 9s, but there's a bunch of things that get 7s, right? And there's so many things that get 7s, you don't even have enough time for all of those. There's no 6, theoretically it's above average, but you're making a mistake with your time if you're watching 6s, and you can't even really watch all the 7s. So I try really hard to like watch enough stuff so I can like kind of identify the 8s and the 9s and recommend them to everybody. And also I kind of recognize that what might be an 8 to me might only be a 7 to you, or vice versa. So I like to get an idea of what you like, or maybe even explain it. If you like this type of thing, this is going to be a must see for you. I think of 10 is perfect, which is hard to actually be 10, right?
Yeah.
9 is near perfect. 8 is must see. That's kind of how I think of as an 8 is a must see. But that might be a little bit different. What's a must see? Someone who doesn't like sci-fi might, I don't know, Fifth Element might not be a must see for them. But
might not.
Even if you don't like sci-fi, I still think A New Hope is a must see, right? It's still something that's big enough and important enough in culture and whatever.
Do you want to argue about whether or not Star Wars is sci-fi or not?
I think it's fine to call it space opera or adventure, but it is also sci-fi. It's not that it's not sci-fi, in my opinion. It is sci-fi, but sci-fi is big enough now to have a bunch of subgenres, and Star Wars isn't simply sci-fi. but it is also sci-fi. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
Like, it's definitely not a mystery movie. It's definitely not a romantic comedy, so
I consider it more fantasy than sci-fi, but it definitely has like the sci-fi window dressing at the very least.
Yeah,
but
I think it's fantasy and sci-fi.
But it's got wizards and swords and monsters and just also has plasma cannons.
Yeah, it's in space with spaceships and warp drives and engineers, and
Right.
it's like if someone said, "I'm really in a mood for a fantasy movie. What should I watch?" and you recommend Star Wars, this person would have to live under a rock, but they'd be like, "That wasn't fantasy." Like, they might even like it, but they might be disappointed because it's not what they were expecting from fantasy. So I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I understand qualifiers being hooked to Star Wars aside from sci-fi, but I still think it's sci-fi.
Okay, good. I mean, I'm glad we got there together, man.
Yeah. That's another thing I think about too when you think about what's your favorite comedy or your favorite sci-fi. Sometimes a movie it gets higher on one list than on the generic list, right? Like,
right. Absolutely.
Like, yeah, it's like, because it's better at being what that thing is. Like, I think that like Star Wars might be higher on my all-time list, but it might not be, like, even if it's like my number one all-time movie is Star Wars. And I think it's sci-fi, but I don't think it's the number one sci-fi movie of all time. I think Blade Runner or Aliens or 2001 are better at being sci-fi movies than Star Wars, even if I think Star Wars is a better movie and is sci-fi. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Star Wars might make my fantasy list. But even though it's my favorite number one movie, it's not my number one fantasy movie. That's going to be Fellowship of the Ring or Kroll, or not Kroll, but something that's more fantasy.
Oh my God, you brought up Kroll.
I shouldn't have brought up Kroll.
I mean, if you want to watch a movie, Kroll is definitely one of them.
It is one of them, but it's a 7 at best, in my opinion. It's a 7 at best.
I don't know if it's that high.
Yeah.
But
7 is worth watching.
It is. Okay.
6 is above average. 8 is must see. Kroll it might be, especially if you want to watch fantasy movies and you've seen all the 10s and 9s and 8s. Okay, fine, you can watch Kroll.
Right.
But you might be better off rewatching Fellowship or rewatching some other 9.
Before I shift gears on you once again, I want to ask you about the show that I have enjoyed the most so far this year. Have you watched The Legend of Vox Machina?
No, I haven't. I'm familiar with it, and I expect to like it. But I will say, and here's the thing: like I said, there's only so much time out there.
Sure.
I have a lot of shows on my list, and I don't know how to rank that one. But so I feel particularly awkward, kind of like downplaying your recommendation to me while at the same time upplaying my recommendation to you, The Dragon Prince. I'm telling you, I know you're going to love The Dragon Prince.
Like, I know.
That's one I recommend in general to everyone, but also specifically to you.
Okay. I mean, I'm on board. It's definitely been on the list for a while.
It's pushing 9. Like, I'm telling you, it's just... Okay, let me go on a tangent here. There's this dynamic to list making, okay? Where sometimes movies that seem like they're like right next to each other on a list can get bumped really far apart. Because, for example, let me see if I can make my point here. If you're trying to make your list of top 10 movies, even if you're a really big fan of sci-fi and fantasy, if your whole top 10 is like Star Wars, A New Hope, Lord of the Rings, if it's all 10, that list... someone might make that decision, right? But by having that list, you do a couple things. You eliminate any romantic comedy, any historical fiction, you like completely remove other things from your top 10. And part of the reason for having a list is to share it with people, right? And so when you share your list with someone, they just see 10 sci-fi and fantasy movies. If they're not into sci-fi and fantasy, they're done with you on your list. So it's good to represent at least a couple other genres in your top 10. Does this make sense?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I agree completely. Like I'm the first to say, like, Empire Strikes Back is my favorite movie of all time. But there are slower, more cerebral films that are probably in the top 10. They're not action, adventure, sci-fi, fantasy things. They're don't ask me right now. I need to go on Flickchart and
something like Moon or
Right. Or like some of Spielberg's work just ranks so highly for
Close
me.
Encounters of the Third Kind, or
Yeah.
Ex Machina, maybe. Did you see that one? Anyway, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah.
Even within sci-fi fantasy, there's like, and maybe you want to represent that in your list, so you have a couple of more of the dramatic or noir or whatever kind of movies in there. But anyway, my point is that if in my top 10, I'm trying to represent the idea that I like a wide variety of movies. And so I don't want to just have everything be crime, or especially with TV shows. At one point, my top 5 were all like crime dramas. You know what I mean? And like, it doesn't really represent what I like. And so I want to start to get other things in there. And so what can happen over time, especially as you see more and more stuff, something at one point that you had in third place that you still love might drop all the way down to 13th or 30th because there's other things that are getting in there. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Because so, we change as people too.
Well, yeah, not even accounting for that. Sometimes the things you watch change you. Sometimes they affect your opinions and your insights and your awareness of the world. But anyway, all this is to say that I think that I think Avatar might get in my top 10, where Dragon Prince might not be even in my top 30. But I still think they're rated like 9 and 8.7 or something like that. Right. It's just that my top 30 are all crunched so close together, and I already kind of Avatar's kind of getting that slot of animation and adventure fantasy and all that. So Dragon Prince still has more seasons to come, and I can't help but think if Avatar, I might be bumping it up too high for nostalgia reasons. That I think someone more objective watches them both. Dragon Prince might be better, man. I'm just trying to tell you how good I think.
I would love to. I will check it out at some point.
All that might be true of Vox Machina too. Just so you know, I should see it so I can judge it fairly.
I mean, when you've got the time, like I can't keep up. I'm not going to get upset with anybody else for not being able to keep up. But I'm on Vox Machina because it is animated fantasy made specifically for adults to watch. It is decidedly not for kids.
That's pretty much Arcane also.
Yeah.
It features a bunch of kids. It seems like in the first episode it's going to be for kids, but by the third episode, like this is rated. Kids should not watch this. They're going to have nightmares. It's going to,
well, you're going to figure that out about Vox Machina within the first few minutes.
Okay.
And the difference between Arcane and Vox Machina is going to be the sense of humor.
Okay.
Because Vox Machina
is pretty serious.
Yeah. Whereas Legend of Vox Machina is it's got a very lighthearted elements to it. A lot of innuendo.
Both. By the way, I am going to get upset for people not watching Better Call Saul.
Okay.
But I did think of another show that I saw recently that's also really good that I particularly want to recommend because it's not really in the limelight at all. Most people have not even heard of this show. And to be fair, I might be hesitant to recommend. I want to preface it with something that's a little out of the ordinary, and it may be more like important, famous, mainstream stuff is maybe more worth watching. But this show it's called How To with John Wilson. It's an HBO show, and it's sort of like a documentary. This John Wilson guy, his whole life, he's like addicted to filming. He just walks around with the camera, just films everything, and eventually has enough material to kind of cobble together a theme and an episode. And he just makes the best little observations and insights. He lives in New York, so he gets like a lot of weird footage of weird things that people do. But he'll come up with, usually it's some kind of like mundane topic, something like, how to make small talk, or, why is there so much scaffolding in New York? Something that seems kind of random. And then all of a sudden he's like, somehow halfway through the episode, he's like joined a cult, or he's like talking about circumcisions, and you're like, how did we get here? Right. And then by the end of it, he's like, and so we should all be good to our neighbors. And you're like, yeah, man, we should all be good to our neighbors. He just takes you on this journey through these convoluted kind of plots and thoughts and bits of filming that he's done, and just always has these really poignant, insightful thoughts about life and society and everything.
Well, I just want to say this, Sean, your recommendation carries weight, but you know whose recommendation carries even more weight?
The person who is the best.
The person who is the best.
I watched it because of her. She recommended it to me, and she was right. It's a weird show, but it's a great show. Yeah.
She got me on The Expanse. She got me on What We Do in the Shadows. So
Oh, you know what else I'm watching? Veep. Veep. That's
Okay.
also that show appeals to my cynical view of politics, and it also has sort of rapid fire interchanges between a bunch of characters, like It's Always Sunny and The Office. A lot of my favorite shows do that.
The world's most twisted TED Talk.
Oh yeah,
I
that's
like
good.
it.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, guys. We are down to about 30 minutes left, and I don't want to keep you all night, obviously. I'm having a blast, Sean. I hope
Cool.
you're having a good time. I would
Totally.
like to ask you something completely different, okay? So I was on the debate team, as were you.
Just so you know, sorry, in the future, whenever you say that, you got to cue the Monty Python music.
Okay.
Dun, 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 dun. You know what I'm talking about, right?
I do.
You could even be that guy running up the beach with your beard. All right, sorry to distract you.
No, just look, distractions are fine. It's kind of part of the brand here. And I did lose my train of thought, however.
Oh no.
Oh yes. So I was on the debate team. You said you were on the debate team. I'm going to ask you a question. I would like you to defend your position. Okay.
All right, I'll try.
Is a hot dog a sandwich?
I think I could argue either side. Okay. Which, by the way, if you remember debate, you had to argue both sides, right?
Yes,
and I think I could argue both sides. But I think I would say yes. I think if I'm pinned down, I think I have to say yes. Here are some thoughts. I think. All right. So for me, a big part of debate was defining the terms, and a lot of times, not just in debate, it's not just like a debate trick. It's also like important for communication in the world. You kind of have to define your terms. So, what is the definition of a sandwich? And it's tricky, and people might debate that. I think usually people are going to start off saying something like a piece of meat between two pieces of bread. But especially as a vegetarian, I immediately take offense to that, because a grilled cheese sandwich and a peanut butter sandwich have no meat, and they're definitely sandwiches. I don't think anyone argues that, right? So a hot dog, so you don't have to have meat. Now, do you have to have two pieces of bread? Okay, let's say that you do, but one, it might get tricky in how you define bread. Like if you had two pieces of cornbread with butter in between it, is that a sandwich? I don't think so. Like I think that's bread and that's something in between it. I don't know. But if you have, someone might call like bread has to, let's say, does bread have to be made out of wheat? Okay, so is a burrito with a flour tortilla a sandwich? Well, it's not two pieces. What if I tore the tortilla in half? Now does it suddenly become a sandwich? Maybe it does. If you take the hot dog bun and break it in two pieces, now does it become a sandwich? If it's as simple as like break it in two and that changes what it is, then I don't think that's a good enough definition. Does that make sense? So I think what matters is that the intent of a sandwich is that you hold it in your hand to eat it. That's what I think. I don't think it has to be wheat. I don't quite know how to define bread. It definitely doesn't have to be meat, but I think is key characteristic of a sandwich is you hold it in your hand. You don't like eat it with a fork or a spoon.
That was the original intent when the Earl of Sandwich made it, was something he could just eat with his hand.
So anyway, that would be my approach to the debate in defining a hot dog as a sandwich. But I do think I could argue it the other way. But I think almost all the arguments are going to have some counterpoint, and it might be a judge of a debate could count up the counterpoints and choose a winning side. And I think that the winning side would be hot dog as a sandwich.
I don't really feel strongly one way or the other. I just love asking the question. You know? Do you realize that in the course of this live stream, there has been a drinking game created based on you?
Oh, really? Does that make sense? You have to drink whenever I say
sense or tangent, apparently.
Tangent. Oh, that's a good one. Yeah. Yeah. Conversation is all about tangents.
A good conversation is. That's what I love about the live stream format, the unscripted format. Like, obviously, over there on History of Westeros, knowing what you're going to talk about, having researched and gotten your ideas out, and especially since you're sort of bouncing back and forth between people, that scripted is very important for that. But I've always really enjoyed the conversational style that a live stream, unedited, just friends talking about stuff. I love that energy. It's fun for me.
For what it's worth, we're somewhere in the middle. You know, like a lot of the History of Westeros material is very scripted. You know, when they have like a certain topic and they research it out and they write it and they record it. But our live streams are, you know, we have like an outline. We have like these points we want to make, like little facts we want to make sure we get right, quotes that we want to read. But then we just talk about what we have in the outline for the course of it. So it's a little bit of both. I like a lot of my favorite TV shows are kind of like a mix of that, like Curb Your Enthusiasm. They have like in this scene, this needs to be conveyed, but you actors just play it out, you know, and I think you get a lot of natural comedy on the moment that wouldn't have come if it was written. But you still, there's a joke that Larry David had that was good that he wanted to make sure he got that too. So it's a good mix.
Oh, Matthew also asks, speaking of drinks, do you have a different drink than you had for the History of Westeros stream, Sean? And if so, what are you drinking?
I reconstituted the same drink in case someone wasn't watching the History of Westeros stream.
And it's probably like coffee with kale and Mountain Dew and peanut butter or something like that.
It's not quite that weird. This is the naked drink, the Rainbow Machine naked drink, mixed with the raspberry sparkling ice, mixed with a strawberry bang. Bang is a drink I discovered from that show, How To with John Wilson. it's like an energy drink, and an episode where somehow all of a sudden he's like interviewing the I mean, I'm telling you, this show takes such weird turns, and anyway, it caused me to discover this new drink. Yeah.
There's all kinds of random food conversation going on in the chat. I don't know if you're paying attention, but like mashed potatoes is Irish guacamole, and a hot dog is a taco, and Ash coming in with mashed potatoes as salad. To me, mashed potatoes is a dip for my chicken fingers.
I think mashed potatoes could be a salad. I don't think by itself it is. I think if you make mashed potatoes and you have like corn and peas in it, you know what I mean? You add if it has a bunch of other ingredients, I think it could be. I think it could fit that. You'd have to define a salad. I don't know. Like I think mashed potatoes is guacamole. I don't know. What Irish guacamole?
Irish guacamole, yeah.
I don't know about that one. I could see the point being made, but I think guacamole, by definition, has multiple different ingredients, right? Like I don't think if there's no avocados, it's not guacamole, right? Now I guess that's true of mashed. If there's no potatoes, it's not mashed potatoes. But if you make guacamole without onions or tomatoes or cilantro or peppers, like I think if you're missing those, it's maybe you could argue, but if you make mashed potatoes without black pepper or without cheese or it's still mashed potatoes, right? If you mash up a potato, it's mashed potatoes almost no matter what you do it after that. But if you mash up an avocado, it's not guacamole yet. You have to have certain other things in there. So I don't know.
So it only becomes Irish guacamole once you add cilantro. Gotcha. Y'all, we're down to about the last 20 minutes. If you've got a question, an interesting question for Sean, make sure you get it in. And there have been several that have flown by, and I thought I would come back to them, and I've missed it. So repost any questions that I skipped. Bear in mind that Sean is a person entitled to his privacy, so let's not ask him for his address or anything, you know. But yeah, just let me know if there's
20 minutes of AMA.
Okay, it doesn't have to be about food either, but should chili contain beans?
I, again, as a vegetarian, might have a biased opinion, but I specifically think that it should. I don't think it must, by definition, have beans. I think you can make chili that doesn't have beans, but I would not
eat. It needs beans.
Yeah.
I like this too. Matthew says, I love Sean as a guest. There's not a single question he doesn't answer with an entire paragraph, which is far preferable to, so is a hot dog a sandwich? Yes.
I do think I prefaced in the first couple minutes that I wasn't
You
going to have
did.
quick, simple answers to almost any questions. So.
You did.
For
And
better or worse,
I'm
I don't know.
here for it. Do you have a favorite vegetarian dish?
Pizza? I'm not sure.
Pizza's great, man.
Yeah.
Everybody loves pizza.
I like when I stopped eating meat, I kept eating a lot of the same stuff just without meat. I just got black olives instead of pepperoni on my pizza.
Man.
The sandwiches, they're still good with lettuce and tomato and cheese, and just take the meat off. It's still good. So pancakes versus waffles. I don't know. It's tough. I don't know. Pancakes, I guess. It's close. I don't feel strongly about that.
Okay.
Pancakes are maybe a little more, you don't have to have a special device to make them. I don't know. Waffles can soak up more butter and syrup. Okay. I don't know. Pros and cons.
I'm going to serve this one to you as much or as little as you want to answer this, but this is my mom. You've met. She says, I want to hear the fandom love story of Sean and Rita.
Well, that's a good one. She was a fan of the History of Westeros podcast, and I was, and her and many people were getting more and more into the community and the fandom. One thing that History of Westeros and a lot of other people, something you're doing, you build a community out there, and however much people want to rag on the final season or whatever, and whether George ever makes the last book, but so many friendships and connections and bonds and thoughts and on literature and morality. Like, it's been a huge impact on the world and culture that this series has had. It's incredible. And but one of those things is like bringing people together, and a lot of this has happened because of the internet. The idea of having a long distance relationship with someone is like, nearly impossible or unthinkable in the past. But, we were kind of getting to know each other online through the community when we met at Ice and FireCon. And there's a funny moment. I think Rita had some other thing that week, and it was like a scramble for her to get there. And really, she was making a point of it to meet me, and I was excited about it. And I remember that Ashea and Lady Gwen and I were eating, and Rita had like her plane had landed, and she was supposed to be getting there. And I think maybe Lady Gwen just joined us. I'm slightly forgetting a few of the details here, but
it's been a while.
But I said, Rita's coming. And Lady Gwen was like, I know. Like, I've been talking about it so much, you know what I mean? Like, everyone knew. Like, yeah, we know. But yeah, anyway, so, we hit it off. We're just into all the same. Like, I play the drums. She plays the bass. We're both into like grunge music and metal music. We both like to dance. We just, obviously we love the fandom, the Game of Thrones and everything. We just had a lot of stuff in common, and did I say we have a lot of stuff in common?
You did, but we're not going to dwell on it.
In common. So, we just really hit it off. We got along well. We went on some hikes and adventures, out there at the con. And, when I could tell you one little, I don't know, corny, romantic, whatever story that I have a little streak of like rebel in me. I have a little bit of like, do what makes sense and don't worry as much about the rules or whatever. Rita's a little bit more conservative, but we were trying to organize to go on a walk. Ice and FireCon, by the way, it's on this lake. It's a beautiful location. If you haven't been there, it's like another reason to go. It's just a beautiful spot. And there's these trails that go out all around. Rita loves to walk. Some of our friends had planned to go on like this hike. And but it's hard to get people together. You know how it is when you're trying to get like a group of, especially when there's a con, there's already got kinds of events and hangovers and whatever else is going on at the con. And so we're just trying to coordinate to get, 5 or 7 or people, whatever, together to go on this hike. And someone's not there yet. We can't get in touch with someone. And Reed and I, we're there on time, ready to go. And I'm like, well, let's just go. We can meet up with other people later. And we're looking out like a balcony of like the lodge of the con to the lake, and the trails are over there. And I'm like, let's just go straight. Let's just go, rather than like go in and around and the stairs and back up around. Like, let's just jump over this ledge and go straight to the trail. Right. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah, let's just do it. And it was probably, I don't know, like 8 or 10 feet tall. Climbed over a ledge, dropped our bag, jumped down, and went off. And we kind of went over the ledge with each other. And anyway, It was
You
from
drag
there.
her along into your chaotic shenanigans.
Yeah. And, so, after that, we kept in touch more than maybe we would have because we knew Con of Thrones was just a few weeks away and we were going to see each other again there. And then, anyway, eventually I moved out here to Denver and we got married. So I don't know if that's enough of a story, but
it's beautiful though. Like I know a few people who have sort of met through their fandom connections, and it's an encouraging thing because a lot of us are not in long-term committed relationships with a romantic partner, but it's nice to see it happen. It gives us that little sliver of hope, so to speak. And I am speaking for myself, but I also know that I'm not speaking just for myself. I know some of my regulars or my close friends are in happy, healthy, committed marriages or long-term relationships or whatever you want to call it, but a lot of us are not. And it's just nice to see that when it happens in that sort of found family of the fandom community. It's really nice. So and I remember Con of Thrones, watching the two of you go from like, what I guess Friday, like it hadn't quite gelled maybe, but by Sunday y'all were sitting and holding hands and stuff, and it was really cute.
Yeah. Like the cons in general are already packed with so many events and memories and friends and everything. But add that to it, it's even more a cherished memory of my life.
So I think History of Westeros ought to do a convention just for the History of Westeros folks, because
interesting idea.
We did HereBeCon earlier this year in January. There wasn't a lot of us, but we got the Airbnb. There were about a dozen of us that got the Airbnb together, and let me tell you, it was pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. It's one thing that's tricky to keep up with these personas, right? These people that a lot of times they have like multiple different names, like on their podcast or their Twitter account, sometimes you meet someone in real life and don't even know that you know them. Does that make sense? But it helps a lot when you go to a con to like start putting faces to names and names to monikers, and people, even if you have interacted with them online or do know them by name or whatever, but when you meet them in person, it strengthens some bonds, it creates new ones. It's so awesome. Yeah.
Totally. They're getting drunk. You know what? I'm going to move into continue to pose questions if you've got them. But Sean, I'm really looking forward to your answer to this question, which is always what I throw towards the end of a conversation on I Know That Nerd. And that is, let us assume for a moment that we are going to make a movie film about your life. Who should play Sean? Who should direct this film? And then what should we call it?
Okay, you know me. Here we go. First of all, it probably shouldn't be a movie. It should be a TV series.
Okay.
It's especially because I've reflected on my life a little bit, especially like, moving to a new city and getting married. You could do some reflection on your life. And I've gone through a few phases. Like I joined the Army out of high school. I grew up, my dad was in the Army. I grew up on an Army base. It's just what I wanted to do. But then I got out of the Army and got like into magic and breakdancing. You know what I mean? It was like a very different sort of phase and time period and circle of friends and everything. And
you need a versatile actor for this.
Yeah, well, and I grew like like my life. Like I've got a gray beard now. You know what I mean? So you can't have the same person playing 19-year-old me as 39-year-old me. So, in recent years, I got into rock climbing and yoga and stuff like that. So, and I don't know. There's a lot of different feels and spans, and so I think that a TV show would do more to cover it, and would also allow for different directors who would handle different elements
You're
of this
cheating.
better, right? So hey, I'm a rebel. I might want an executive producer, someone that has a range, someone that can like has a good amount of comedy, but it can also have different types of productions. Someone like, you know, the Coen brothers or Taika Waititi or someone like that. Maybe it could be the executive producer. But maybe for my Army days, you want, I don't know, Ridley Scott or someone who could do Steven Spielberg or something like that. And then maybe Bo Burnham might do good for some of the night scene time period, or, you know,
okay.
I guess
play you, Bo Burnham?
No, I don't think
to direct.
But to be a director, yeah.
Okay.
I guess I probably want a female perspective in there somewhere, maybe. I don't know.
Mom wants to know who should play Rita.
Who should play Rita? Rita should play Rita.
Okay. Safe answer.
Yeah, just get the most famous people. Timothée Chalamet plays me young. Brad Pitt plays me old.
I mean, the resemblance is fairly striking. I don't think Brad Pitt's going to grow a beard quite like that, though.
You know, by the way, I wanted to ask you something. It's a D&D thing, or a role-playing thing. I should clarify, role-playing. Have you heard of, oh, shoot, have I forgot it? I think it's called Arcane. Doggone it. I think it's called Arcane. No, Amber. Have you heard of Amber role-playing?
No, I don't think I have.
I'm
going to Google this.
So, for one, for me, you know, you hear the word D&D, but I like explored a bunch of different role-playing systems. It kind of took the best pages out of all the books, and I don't even know how much I would enjoy playing just straight up D&D. I mean, I know that I would, but over the years I kind of like form my own system. Does that make sense? And one key piece of this was Amber, and their system didn't have dice. You didn't roll for your stats. And that really, and they I think they did have a system of like maybe auctioning for stats. And so, like, you know, someone in the party was going to get like the highest strength, and then someone was going to get the highest intelligence, or some system like that. But my idea became, and now to be fair, this requires experienced role players, but just make whatever stats you think fit your character's personality. To me, it was always more important, like, to develop your character's personality. And then if you do that, if you really make an enjoyable, realistic character, you won't really even care if you have 18 strength or 18 dexterity, whatever it is. Like a character with average stats is fine if they have a good personality. And if the DM builds a world around them, like, I think it's so much more important for the DM to spend time with the characters, asking them not like, what is your strength, but why is your character strong? How is it your character has, you know, I would even let my players, you can have all 18s if you want, but what does that mean? That means you came from a wealthy family. Why aren't you still with them? Were you trained? Was your dad abusive, or did he spend time with you? Were you spending all your time? You know, there's got to be reasons to have all these stats, and that starts to create characters and motivations for your characters and the people in the world. And so, anyway, that Amber Diceless role-playing system really kind of inspired me to think of role-playing in a whole new way. So, I just want to share that with you as a fellow DM.
I have played in my life probably over 100 titles of TTRPGs.
Yeah.
Hold on again one more second.
Okay.
I'm going to grab this thing.
You know, if I had to pick a favorite TV show, it might be
Amber,
The Office.
And
when you say you have to grab this thing, I want to channel Michael Scott.
You brought up Amber. Amber is written by, when I Googled it, I saw the name of the guy that wrote it. It's Eric Wuschik, I think.
Yeah, I think that it was based on a certain world.
This guy right here.
Yeah.
Who helped write this game, Heroes Unlimited. He worked for Palladium Games for a long time. So, and they actually had a lot of sort of branded stuff. So they made the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles RPG. They made the Robotech RPG.
I wonder if any of those games have some slices of what I'm talking about. Yeah.
No, they're probably they're more traditional mechanical type things. But yeah, I love the idea of a diceless game.
Yeah, you just, when you get to a scenario where someone has to, like, you know, jump over the ravine or climb the wall, rather than like, roll your die, I got a 14. Okay, you did it. Instead, you say, I try to reach up but I can't quite grab it, so I jump. And we're like, well, do you think your character should make this jump? I don't know. I don't know if my character's that good. I'm too heavy to make that jump. Well, maybe I'll try to take some equipment. You like talk through the reality of it rather than roll a die. You know, it forces more role playing. You know, so anyway, seed of thought for anyone out there that plays a lot of D&D and is worried about getting caught up in stats and numbers, which sometimes happens. But some people love the stats and numbers, and they would hate playing with me because I try to downplay them as much as I can. But for people who like the I don't know, the performative puzzle solving aspects of D&D, that's what I like more so.
Yeah, my favorite parts of the RP. I love the game, the concept in general, but you know, the character development RP is my favorite. I played D&D this morning. Gonna play it again tomorrow after work, which is what Kate is talking about. She's in my game that we play on every other Wednesday night. Sean's bringing up the game that we play every other Wednesday night where he plays with us. So that's another thing. You want to play some D&D? I am your guy. I'm currently playing in 5 different campaigns.
It's a lot to keep up with.
It is. I'm only DM for 3 of them, but I'm playing, and I'm a player in 2. But Christine of the Never Never podcast says she loves Amber, which hey,
cool.
I'm going to check it out. Like, it seems anything that's trying something new is worth at least checking out.
I should clarify, I'm not recommending against it, but I'm not trying to recommend playing Amber. I'm trying to recommend this piece of Amber that I found very valuable, which is don't worry about don't think of your character in terms of having 15 strength. Think in terms of your characters as being able to pick up that boulder. You know, think of what strength do they have and how does that translate rather than some number that you're going to roll against.
Right,
you know?
Right. That makes sense. Yeah, I mean, D&D is not a simulation.
Yeah.
I can hit you a whole bunch of times. You can sleep for 8 hours and feel perfectly fine.
Yeah, that's
just, like that's not how the real world works. Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, it was another thing that kind of bothered me too. The idea that, you know, if you have 20 hit points and you take 18, you're still running and jumping and slashing the same. It's like you should be limping, crawling on the ground. About the, you know, you got to account for the level. I don't like to think about, all right, they hit you with the dagger, roll a die, you took 2 damage. I like the idea that they hit you with a dagger and now your bicep is bleeding and you can't raise your forearm anymore. You know what I mean? Like, I like to, what did that damage mean? How does
there's this whole conversation I could have about hit points. Yeah. And about what they actually represent and all of that. Well, we are moving towards the end, and Ashea is bringing up cats since she didn't get one on the History of Westeros stream today.
It usually is part of the closing moment, so.
Okay. Well, we'll save it for the closing moment then.
All right, all right.
I would like to see the baby.
There's 3 of them to be clear, so I'll get 1, but not all 3.
Yeah, I don't blame you. So this is me telling the chat, last chance to get your questions in, because we're literally just a couple of minutes from the end.
If it's totally dead space, someone throw a flick chart decision at me.
Yeah, there you go. All right, I'm going to throw one at you. You ready?
Okay.
E.T. versus the Maltese Falcon.
E.T. is pretty easy.
Okay.
Maltese Falcon it's sort of this category of classic movies, we'll say, but it's not the best one of them. You know what I mean? And as time passes, it's kind of slipping in its iconic nature. And E.T. may also be slipping its iconic nature, but it is more current. It's a bigger part of culture. Like, it's the freaking logo of all the Steven Spielberg movies. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more, I think it's had more impact on society. More people have seen it. It's had more impact on more people. I think it was more of a filmmaking effort too. It took more special effects, more of a directorial challenge than just 2 people in rooms talking to each other over and over again. So,
yeah, but
doesn't mean Maltese Falcon is bad. Doesn't mean I don't like it. But if you have to pick one or the other, and I'm trying to find a reason to, so yeah.
It's basically the birth of an entire genre too, film noir.
Yeah, I don't want to argue against that because I don't know enough, but I feel like film noir is older than Maltese Falcon. I think that, like, the Germans were doing it, you know. I think that
okay, maybe it's Hollywood noir.
Maybe the Hollywood, the first Hollywood or the premiere Hollywood version, but
Okay. Anybody else got one they want to ask Sean? Any last minute questions? Ridiculous Ed Tollett, also Sean.
Oh, Asteroid is freaking awesome. Yes, I love Asteroid. Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Ooh, here's a good one. T2 versus Godfather.
Godfather. For one, I like Terminator 1 better than Terminator 2. So if you ask me Terminator 1 versus Godfather, it's a tougher decision, but I think I still pick Godfather. I think the Godfather is, I mean, it's just like a masterclass in filmmaking. And I think maybe similar to Citizen Kane, like a lot of people might just be kind of bored with it, but a lot of people think it's the greatest movie ever made. And I don't know if I think it's the greatest movie ever made, but T2 is definitely not in contention for greatest movie. Like it might be in contention for greatest sci-fi, but even that's like, I don't even know if it's top 5 sci-fi. Like even people love it. Does everyone think T2 is better than 2001 and Blade Runner and Aliens? And like, I don't know, maybe, but I think in general, T2 is like a great sci-fi movie. Godfather is a great movie. Does that make sense?
I love this question. Spielberg versus Hitchcock.
Spielberg, for sure. He has so much more variety and success. Like, I mean, think about the difference between Jaws and E.T. and Indiana Jones
and Close Encounters.
The Color Purple. You know what I mean? Like, he has such a huge range of styles of movies over generations. Hitchcock was, I mean, this is a little unfair, but he was kind of a one-trick pony. You know, he's basically doing...
He was great at what he did.
Yeah. He was good, and he had a lot of good movies, and had... Psycho, you know, like I think Psycho is nearly on par with any one Steven Spielberg movie. But Steven Spielberg has like 10. It's Schindler's List. Jesus. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Steven Spielberg is like, I feel a full notch ahead of, yep, there you go. It's a full notch ahead of Hitchcock.
Yeah. Matthew wants to know what your thoughts are on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
I loved it. I've been rethinking my superhero movie ratings recently, and I think Into the Spider-Verse is top 3, maybe top 5 for sure. And I think it's the best Spider-Man movie. It's good. I recommend it to everyone. I think it does a good job of being more representative than most superhero movies have been, and it's kind of got a lot of innovative. I appreciate the different styles of animation, and I could go on and on. Like it's high up there. I like it. I'm glad for it. Everyone should see it, etc. Yeah,
Shea, I know that you love that film like I love that film. Basically, I am of the mindset that there are no perfect movies except The Empire Strikes Back and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And of course, I don't think they're perfect, but they're close enough that it makes no difference to me.
9.6 and higher. You know what I mean? If you want to like mince, split hairs, and maybe it's not a perfect 10, but I think anything in 9.6 or higher, I'm comfortable rounding up to 10. So
okay, I think we'll end with this. Potter points out that we did not get the name of your anthology television show about your life. I really think we do need a title for this show.
I will hem and haw over this for too long. I don't know. Okay. I'm open to suggestions. If I thought about it more, I might come up with something, but I feel bad just sitting here thinking about it in the last minute. So I might have to come back for another episode. See Sean dance, huh? Yeah. Evolution of dance. Ooh, how about that?
Ooh, that's good.
All right.
The evolution of dance.
Oh, there you go.
We got there together, buddy. We got there together.
Well, do we really have to end it?
Yeah, we really do. I have to pee.
Oh, I hear you with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and food is calling my name and that sort of thing. But yeah, this is great. Sean, I ought to have you back when we do some of our movie reviews. Given that, I mean, I knew you enjoyed film, but I didn't realize just maybe how big a movie lover you were.
Oh yeah, like I don't know. I don't want to say this. I don't want this to sound like a one-up kind of thing or something. But Flickchart has helped me keep track of how many movies I've seen, which is tough to do. That's like I don't know, 20 years ago when I started thinking about this kind of seriously. Sorry, I'm about to go on another tangent here. Take a drink. I tried to. It was when the AFI, when the American Film Institute released their top 100 movies of all time. I remember looking over it and thinking, I haven't even heard of half these movies, much less do I think they're top 100 of all time. I'm going to make my own list. And so I start listing out movies, and I get like 30 or 40 movies, and I'm like, I can't think of any more movies. You know what I mean? Like, I can't even. Eventually, I was like, I kept going, and I did some research, but I could only like list out like a couple hundred movies. And so how valuable is my top 100 list when I'm only narrowing down so I decided like maybe I should watch more movies. You know what I mean? Maybe I should pay attention to this AFI list. And so I just started watching all the Academy Award winners, all the top money makers, all the AFI movies. I started to watch so many movies, and it's hard to keep up with them all, much less rank them. But Flickchart helps with that. And I think that I've seen about 3,000 movies now. I think not quite, but it's like 2,900 or something like that.
That's a lot of movies, man.
Yeah, it's a lot. But point being, there's a good chance if you pick almost any movie from the past, I'll have seen it or at least be familiar with it. And I'm willing to watch new movies to keep up with the stuff too. So.
Okay. So I just went to Flickchart.
Okay.
Made my little account. It was really quick. The first one I get is It's a Wonderful Life versus the Blair Witch Project.
Wonderful Life.
Wow. Yeah. Oh, yeah. For me too.
Yeah. You're just going to start a whole new episode here, Steven. I could sit here 2 hours and do Flickchart with you.
No, we're not doing it.
It could be a new weekly installment we do. Get John on it. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm sure John is probably going to get on it. But yeah, Sean, this has been a blast. I'm going to, we do more TV than film most of the time. We're doing a film next week, though. I mean, we will occasionally. I love the retro reviews, those classic nerdy movies that got us through the 80s and 90s. I love.
Yeah, I could easily start doing my 1 minute reviews on TV shows too. I could definitely kind of pitch what the show is all about. Why you should watch it, why you might like it. I think I could do 1 minute reviews of TV shows.
Oh, excuse me, but I'm sure this gentleman right here would be happy to have you. Like, I know that y'all disagreed about some things, but good conversation about film and television, often you have differing opinions, and it's in the discussion of those differing opinions that you find some of the best stuff.
It's also when people have a certain disagreement, when people who are knowledgeable and passionate and have a disagreement about things, but then have common ground, that's what everyone should pay attention to.
Right. I totally agree. But yeah, I think that's about the end, everyone. Like I say, I've got things. I've got about 4 different urges. I'm a smoker. I'm hungry, and I gotta pee. So I think we are going to go ahead and wrap this up. So I will just say to everyone who is here live, thank you so much. We had really good turnout for a live stream. I think we got up to 40 at one point, which is great. Oh yeah, here comes the kitty cat.
Uh-oh. Ooh, goober.
But if you enjoyed your time with us, I invite you to come back next week. We'll be talking about The Fifth Element, and I will have John and Nessie, my normal co-hosts, back. Now, what cat is this?
This is Mokora for the flame tattoo on her face, and also for Korra, the legend of.
Korra, the legend of. Got you. Very nice.
If I could give a takeaway, it's get on Flickchart and watch Better Call Saul. That's my.
Okay, that is your final takeaway.
Yeah, and go to a con. Go
to a convention, dude. If I talk about the best weekends of my life, they're all at a convention. Seriously, I'm not kidding. Okay, children, blah 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 blah. I've got kids, and those were great, and those are but when you just talk about the fun stuff, yeah, convention. So yeah, come back next week. We're going to be talking about The Fifth Element. Go over to History of Westeros. Watch Sean do his thing. What are y'all talking about next week? More Valyria?
I think the last 2 or 3 episodes we didn't get through all of our information, but we've had guests, so we put off things for the sake of the topic for the next guest. So I think we're going to do some catch up. But yeah, it's almost certainly going to be centered around Valyria. maybe some of the others, maybe the children and the Andals coming across. But we're in that ancient early history of the world of Ice and Fire.
Nice. Cool. World of Ice and Fire is good. It's this book right here.
That is the one.
Which for those of you that missed it earlier, I'm going to show it again because I get to brag a little bit. That's Sean right there.
Boom. Yeah.
Got my Ashea right there. Yeah, Ashea. Aziz is in here. Oh, there's Aziz right there. And yeah, you guys are going through it, as you said, at a very slow pace. But that just
a very thorough pace.
Thorough pace. So yeah, go watch Dancing Sean over on History of Westeros. Check out his channel where he's doing short reviews. Looking forward to your review of the Oscar movies. Hopefully shortly after the Oscars is over.
So far, my favorite one is Belfast. I think it's particularly timely with what's going on in the world right now.
I watch that movie too. I really want to see that.
I should say that's my other takeaway. Yeah, like and subscribe on my channel, Dancing Sean on YouTube. Yeah.
But yeah, thanks to everyone who was here in the chat. You guys always keep the conversation lively. And if you're watching this later, thank you for watching later. It's way cooler if you're here live and you get to partake in the chat and have your questions answered in real time and everything. So try to join us live if you can. If not, hey, I still appreciate it. Also, remember to like and subscribe and do all the YouTube stuff because, hey, it's YouTube.
Thanks for having me, Stephen. This is awesome.
It was a
your audience for coming to watch. Yeah.
It was a genuine pleasure, my man, and thanks for doing it. And like I say, I know it can be difficult for you to be a guest on this show because specifically I chose this time slot to start after History of Westeros finishes, but it's not always.
It was fine. I'm a trooper.
Sean is more likely to plug a show he likes than his own show. I believe that. But yeah, so yeah, come back next week, everyone, and we'll see you then. Until next time, you know what it is. Peace and be excellent to each other.